I am Tara Jaramillo, and this is my podcast called The Monster Within. This podcast is based off of my experiences in being married to a narcissist and surviving domestic violence abuse. Please note and take care that the subject matter that I discuss may be triggering. I am dedicated to do this podcast in hopes of bringing awareness to abuse, domestic violence, and narcissistic behavior, in hopes that maybe I save someone's life. The scary thing is, Juan and I had been so entwined in each other's lives, right? And that's kind of what marriage is. We had a 2-income household that we needed and used. He knew all my passwords because, man, sometimes I can't use technology or I need help. So we really knew each other, and we knew each other's lives and really what you would think is a normal marriage component of knowing everything about the other. So after this started happening, I went and shut down my bank accounts, got my finances in order, got his name off a few things, and at least I could live. Like I could start going through the motions and getting my life together. During that time, I wrote a divorce lawyer, and I found out that Juan had logged into my email and wrote my divorce lawyer that I didn't need him anymore and tried to restrict the communication that way. Luckily, I figured that out and was able to proceed. But it was brutal, what he did to my kids. One event, so he had to live with his mom while I had the house, and we figured things out. And one day he had my children a few months after we put in a temporary agreement that he could have them Wednesday, Thursday, and every other weekend. He had my child over on a Wednesday night, and my Natasha was 7 at that time, and she had never wished about running away. She had never, up until this whole event that happened in July, we were pretty normal in the sense of mother and daughter, and she was excited about life and school. And for some reason, Juan had kind of edged her up and really kind of fed into things, I believe. Really built it up, just like he had fought with Mia on that 4th of July. He also fought with Tasha. And she all of a sudden decided that she was going to walk home. And so for where his mother and him lived to where I lived was 15 minutes, but it was through like a busy highway and not through the best part. Anyone could come and pick her up and take her. And so he had threatened her that she could leave. She had her backpack on. She was having like a whole breakdown moment. And essentially what he was trying to do was kind of build her up, like he tried to build me up the night that he tried to kill me. And I realized really quickly what he was doing. And I called 911 for a wellness check, and they went over there and checked on him. And what was interesting was my daughter was sitting on the couch with her backpack on, threatening to leave, and the police officer had to calm her down. And Juan at that time just said, "See, you need to listen to the police officer. He said you can't run away." And I just remember thinking, wow, this is such a different person. He was obviously trying to get me worked up, trying to get to me. He did not appreciate the phone call to the police. And his mother as well did not appreciate that. And luckily that was the last incident involving the kids in a sense of trying to run away. But it shows how sad that he would do that and put his child in a reckless situation, or even to amp up her emotions in a way that she couldn't even begin to understand what was happening. And he felt proud of that moment until the police showed up at his door. And that was the last time he ever pulled anything like that. But he, would tell the children how awful mom I am, what awful person. I mean, he would say the meanest things. He would talk about my family, my mom and dad just being rotten people. And the girls were really confused. And his mom also started saying some wicked things. And especially to my children too, she was trying to manipulate them for they would be more on her side. She ended up kind of scaring them a little bit, I think was kind of outside of her goal that she wanted to do. I was very thankful that I found a realtor close to December. I was working with her earlier to try to find a house. I knew I couldn't stay at the family home that we had. But in December, we were able to put the house on the market and we were going to sell it. And Juan took every opportunity he could to derail the selling of the house. He tried to manipulate more money. He tried to cause two buyers to fight each other for our house, and we almost lost the buyer that did buy our house with cash. He almost demanded more money. I mean, the things that he did were so foolish, but yet unhinged, like unheard of. And he was just very upset that I was pulling through to sell this house. And we ended up selling it pretty fast. I moved out 4 days after the sale of the house. So on December 23rd and 24th, I was moving to my new condo, and Juan was still trying to fight to get this house, a whole debacle, and luckily it sold without a hitch. I couldn't have asked for a better way. God definitely was looking out for us, and Juan couldn't derail it as much as he tried. He already was derailing the divorce proceedings and pushing them back. At the same time, he was being charged with domestic violence and stalking, and he had to go to court for that as well. But after the house sold, you could see there was a shift. He lost kind of control. He wanted more control, but there was nothing more that he could hold over my head. Our divorce was final on March 18th of 2024. And it was a sigh of relief. I mean, he nickeled and dimed everything that he could. And he got out winning. I mean, he got the most money from the house proceedings, and he ended up with the most, which is fine. I had to learn to let it go. It hurts because he came into this relationship with nothing. I was the one with the full-time job and took care of him all those years ago. And it was what it was. I had to learn to live with it, and I had to learn to move on. And to be honest, I'm very thankful that I am free and knowledge of what he truly is. The experience, as hard as it is, because I always feel like, why didn't I choose better? My dad feels that way too, like, oh, you fell for this awful person and you should have known better. And maybe I should have. But the truth is, this person lied about who they were. They disguised themselves to something that I needed. And looking back, as painful as this has been part of my journey. There's a reason that I survived this. There's a reason God put him in my path. The most that I worry about is the damage that he will do to my children. I had a giggle. The court found him to be a good dad, even though he had domestic abuse and stalking charges on him. But he's a good dad. And so, of course, he got the 50-50. He got out of child support. He maybe pays $200 a month, which to me, eventually, he will probably end up being the same person and worse than he was at the end with me. His anger is still there. He isn't allowed to drink until October of 2025. If he's even following that, I'm not sure. But he ended up with a slap on the wrist. He has to pay some fees, go to some classes, and essentially he's a free man. And he, good for him. I think karma will come for him. And at least I'm out of that relationship. I have freedom. I have self-worth again. I have picked myself up. He has now since started dating a new person in June of 2024. And he very quickly brought them around my children and her children. She has 3 of them. She has them on the same weekends as my children. And the sad part is I am starting to see how he treated me. He's treating my own children and his new girlfriend, like cutting them down, making fun of them, and how he is starting to kind of treat them, love bombing, manipulation, but then also violence. There's been a couple times where the girls will come home and they tell me different things. And granted, it's now an 8 and 7-year-old telling me, but at the same time, there's just different things that stand out to me. He's argumentative about food that the new girlfriend cooks, or no restaurant that she picks is good enough. And that couldn't have hit so close to home because that was a lot of his anger, was just nothing was ever good enough. And apparently she didn't help clean his house and he was angry about it. But the one thing that stood out that I feel sad and there's nothing that I can do is the other 3 children that she has. She'll stay over at my ex's house and her children will sleep on the floor while she sleeps in the bed with my ex. And I just feel like, what kind of mother would allow that? And I see the same patterns, kind of repeating, that he's pushing her boundaries, that she's showing him that it's okay that her kids are treated like that. And the girls came home a couple weeks ago and they told me that the girlfriend, Aaliyah, was outside and the boys that she has were acting up. The 2 boys were. And they were scared of the basement at his house because it's old and dark and dingy. And they were fighting with Juan, and he told them that for their punishment that they had to sit in the basement. So he forced them to go in the basement after they protested, and he forced them in there, and they were screaming to be let out. Well, then his girlfriend Aaliyah comes back in from being outside and sees and hears what happens, and she's all upset and she's crying, and my kids notice that she's crying as well, and she doesn't like that he did that. And he said, well, they need to behave. And Natasha goes, my oldest, was like, I'm glad that wasn't me, but that was kind of really uncomfortable. She didn't really quite know how to digest that. And so we had to have a conversation. Well, a couple of weeks after that happened, the girls tell me that the girlfriend left for the store and the 2 boys were acting naughty and the one little boy didn't stop. The littlest one, he's 6, apparently. And Juan made him and forced him to go in the basement. And that little kid cried and cried and cried and screamed. And it is shocking to me how that violence is so readily there and there's no alcohol to accelerate it, and that he's fine abusing these children that are not his. And I worry for what will happen, because I know on the night of July 12th of 2023, just his violence and how scary he was, I don't think that's dissipated, and I worry about the violence that he will bring forward. And I fear for anyone that's in his path, especially anyone that he's involved with or the children that he's affecting. I worry about my children being affected. Having this event with the domestic violence and having my experiences have really shaped who I am. It has humbled me. For the longest time, I felt embarrassed and humiliated to a lot of people that I know, especially in the community that I live in is very small. And, being an x-ray tech prior, a lot of people know my husband and I. And so it was just a very surreal feeling. And so I have a lot more understanding for victims and people within the same position that I am. I understand what that feels like. After the divorce, I decided to write my first book. It was a way of, I was trying to make awareness of what happened to me, but then also bringing kind of Juan's personality to full attention as well to the community, for people would be aware or our friends would be aware. Some may not believe my story, and that is their freedom and their free of choice to do that. But it is everything that has happened that I have said through this podcast has been truthful, and it's been very scary. And I could never have imagined this would have happened to me before. It is just unbelievable, especially for someone that you loved. I understand how hard it can be to have a hard time telling your story, or if people don't believe you. It is a very hard memory to keep. It's hard to let And if anyone would like me to read their story on my podcast here, I have no problem. So you can write me, you can change the names, the dates, that's totally fine. But I would help you share your story because I think we're all important to share our stories. And what the abuse and the domestic violence that we suffered wasn't our fault. It happened to us. It wasn't that we should have chose better. It was that this person hid. And now we have the knowledge and the experience to move forward. My email address is JARAMARROW2014 and I would share your story. Thank you. Again, thank you for listening to my podcast. And I want to help as many people as I can because this is a hard situation to go through. I have a lot of healing that I need to do, and it will take me a lot of time. But every day I get a little bit stronger and I feel a little bit more confident. And I know that I will be healed someday and I can enjoy life again. Thank you for listening.